Hello. Balance of Powers by Compass Games, designed by John Gorgowski. I've had this title quite a while now, and it's had a number of plays. The designer was gracious enough to let me play some of the smaller scenarios with him before I dove into the main campaign game, and got to play it 18 months or so ago, perhaps slightly longer, at a convention in the UK with some friends. Did it multiplayer, went for the whole thing, which was the two main maps in Northern Southern Europe plus the Ottoman map, and we did the full naval rules and Africa, so possibly a little bit ambitious. But we got to a conclusion in the game, basically because the Western Front broke on the Central Powers side late summer 1916. The reason for that was that there is a concept called tactical innovation in the game, and essentially you're not hindered by the enemy trench systems once you've developed your technology, which in the game is called tactical innovation, or TI for short, and you gain experience every time you have a major battle against a defender who is entrenched. There's lots of other very novel ideas in the game. I certainly applaud what the designer's done. He has dared to be different. He could have gone with a relatively straightforward odds ratio CRT, which we've all got used to over the years, but he's come up with a very interesting combat mechanism which allows one side to try, the defender to try and reinforce an attacked hex if the attacker hasn't yet got his TI level. You get bonuses for reserves, and it's a straight 2d6 roll, which can affect both sides. But as I say, we came to the conclusion that actually the tactical innovation threshold was being reached too early, and you could say by the wrong side, because it's my understanding that it was the Central Powers that developed the sort of Stoßtruppen tactics on the Eastern Front in 1917, which they brought across to the Western Front for the Kaiserschlacht in March of 1918. On the contrary, we had the Western Allies achieve it first, so it seemed a bit odd. But I was sufficiently impressed with the game that I brought it back and I ran it again, solitaire, and actually recorded the number of attacks that were made, and to see if our experience was a bit of a one-off or this is a fairly typical outcome. And it went down the same path. And one of the other sort of effects of the TI is that you can't gain TI if the defender has only got a single core in the hex, because for it to be a major battle there must be at least 2 core on both sides, and the defender must be entrenched, and then you get your automatic TI level is increased by 1, and you start rolling when the total gets to about 36. So there's no incentive for the Russians to defend with more than 1 core. They tend to pull back, yielding with a number of smaller battles, which denies the Germans the opportunity to gain TI points on the Eastern Front. So it struck me that actually you could potentially also accumulate TI points for both small and large battles, but the chance of getting a TI point would be less with a smaller battle. So with that in mind, I ran some numbers on a spreadsheet, having recorded all the attacks, and came up with a mechanism to allow a separate die roll with each attack, and with a target level to achieve TI, depending on whether it's a small or a large battle. And the game was then put to bed for a while, and just recently I've been sort of motivated to give it another go. What's quite nice about the game is that there are plenty of scenarios, and if you want to not quite do the whole thing, you can miss out the Ottoman map, and there is an abstracted set of naval rules which simplifies gameplay and also speeds it up. So because I'm primarily just focusing on what's happening in the main theatres, it's a nice way to run through with some house rules. So this is still pretty much near to the start. I'm just up to the first winter, so I played the August, September, October, November month turns. I will do a quick run around the map in a moment, but I'd forgotten what a nice game it was. There was a lot of initial chat on Consim about some people didn't like the helmets on the counters, and we don't always have to do counters in the same way. There's nothing wrong with being a bit different, as long as they are perfectly legible, which they are in my mind. I think the map's quite attractive, and I'll hopefully push on with this. I'd like to get through the full war, at least when the TI starts to trigger, to see whether or not it happens at a more of an historical dateline. But that's enough rambling. Let me take some footage of the map, and hopefully I'll post again at some point. So here we are on the Western Front, just about to go into the January 1915 turn. Still need to do the winter builds. I use the historical, which is not an official, but there is an historical setup available on Consim, which I use for the Western Front, to save thinking about it too much. The Germans had a pretty successful opening where they've captured Nancy. The von Schlieffen drive got them fairly deep into France. They've surrounded Antwerp, so the Belgian army is bottled up in Antwerp, and the British and the French were just about able to get enough troops, enough bodies on the ground to block any more progress. The BEF managed to cut across the German lines at one point. I'm playing the optional supply rules, that you check your supply situation at the end of your second fortnight. It used to be, with the rules was published, that you would both do your fortnight and then you'd both check for supply at the same time, which of course gave the person moving second quite an advantage. I think there was an optional rule to allow you to check your supply after your second fortnight, which seems a much more balanced way of doing it. That, by the way, is just a home-produced army marker. That's actually Ludendorff's army with the siege guns trying to assault Maubeuge. I think it's Maubeuge is the hex under the 3-3 French counter. And on the Eastern Front, very little activity around Königsberg and I guess what would be the German 8th Army. So the Russians have instead applied their efforts to attack the Austro-Hungarians. They've taken their 3 population centres. So the game's all about resource points, and you can gain a resource point for each 3 population centres that you capture in any major country that you're attacking. So they've got their first 3, and they're now applying some hurt on the Austro-Hungarians, but they're aware that at some point the Germans will move to the Eastern Front. There is an interior lines rule which allows them to shift their siege guns before the first fortnight is actually taken, and that's a pretty powerful weapon in the Central Powers arsenal. And Putnik gloriously managed to attack over the Sava. There used to be an Austro-Hungarian naval flotilla, which is not there anymore because Putnik managed to pass his command role and add an additional +1, and they were able to kick out the Austro-Hungarian flotilla. But they only allowed 1 offensive per calendar year, so that was as far as they got in 1914. So there you go. As I say, I'm not using the, you'll see the extent of the map. I'm not using the Ottoman map, so you've just got the northern part of the Ottoman Empire there. And this is the what's happening in 1915. You can see the forces that are going to be added to the force pool as we progress into and through 1915. There you go. Speak to you next time.